There is this trick in the King's Indian defense that I've been using for a while now, and I wanted to share it with you because I recently played a game with 99.7 accuracy. And of course, I was very familiar with the position. My opponent still got a brilliant move, but anyways, let me start from the beginning. That way you can see how we got to it. So d4, d6, King's Indian defense, you typically start with knight f6 first, but I'm trying to avoid the annoying bishop g5, which is not a big deal. I just don't like it. So I play d6, knight g6. Doesn't really matter the move order. We just get to the King's Indian defense setup, and after we castle, we have knight b to d7. Of course, we had a lesson on how to play the King's Indian defense against the Fianchetto variation, and you have many different setups. I'm playing knight b to d7 with the idea to play e5 right away. My opponent castles, then pawn to e5, and after pawn to e4, I start with a6. Now, a6, many times you see it followed by rook b8, pawn to b5, but here I'm willing to play pawn to b5 directly. And of course, this is what I wanted to share with you. This idea of b5 expanding on the queen side, and the little trick is that if they take it twice, we have bishop a6 pinning the knight to the rook. In this game, my opponent takes on e5 first. The best move here, or the better move, as you can see over here, is knight takes e5. I know it, but I really want to give him the opportunity to rethink if they're going to capture on b5 or not. My opponent went ahead and took, and now after bishop a6, I'm pinning the knight. You cannot defend it. If you go, let's say, queen b3, I'm going to add more pressure to it, or I might even play rook b8 to pin it even more, and then c6. The other move is pawn to a4, but since they have lack of development, I could just take on b5, pawn takes b5, and the rook hangs. So at this point, the computer marks knight c3 as a brilliant move. Go figure. Now, the truth is that I've played this many times. I have lost it. Even after taking the rook, I have lost the game. So that's why this time I remembered, well, now I gotta be energetic. Then knight goes to e6, and I'm ready to take on d4. Notice that e5 is hanging like many times we do in the King's Indian defense, because after they take, knight d4, queen d1, of course you have the discovery on the knight. So knight takes e4. If you take, the bishop collects right away. This is very easy for black now. In the game, my opponent, of course, this is just a blitz game. My opponent takes on f7. Of course, my opponent is thinking, if I'm going to lose the knight, at least I'm going to get something for it, because I'm guaranteed to collect this one on e4. However, after rook f7, knight e4, tactics time, see if you can find it. Not that complicated. You probably saw it before I even asked you to find it. But of course, there's a hanging queen on d1, knight to f3 protected by the rook, and my opponent just resigned. Now, the one thing I want to point out is that, well, you might be asking, what if my opponent doesn't take on b5? What if they do something else, right? So maybe rook e1, okay? Well, all you have to do now is use your pawn. You could go pawn to b4, be energetic. In some lines, you could even just leave it on c6, and you got a nice position anyway. So if they fall for the trick, great. If not, well, you got a nice position anyways. It's not like you are sacrificing pieces just to hope they fall for it. So with that said, let me know in the comments if you liked this idea, if you were familiar with it. And of course, I will see you in our next video.